All right, I'm gonna go ahead and call this February 1st, 2024 school board meeting. I call it to order. Karen, can I get a roll call?
Brett,
Here.
Bridget,
Here.
Chad,
Here.
Rick,
Here.
Kelly,
Here.
Lori,
Here.
Whitney.
Here.
All right, moving along, 1B, agenda adoption. Dr. Lipnick, are there any changes? There are none. All right, so no change is gonna get it.
Motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Chad, did you really get that?
He did,
I started to say move before she went,
Alright.
but
I'm gonna give that one to Chad.
Thank you.
Lori, better luck next time.
Thanks. I'll try harder.
Okay. You should in life. All right, 1C, pledge of allegiance.
Anyway, we gotta vote.
Oh, we gotta vote. Oh, yeah, vote. Karen?
Bridget,
Yes.
Chad,
yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Brett.
Yes. All right, now 1C, pledge of allegiance. We stand? Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do I have any volunteers for the district vision and mission?
I'll read it.
Chad, please. Thank you.
Southeast Polk, we will learn, lead, live, success for college, career, and civic life. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
All right, thank you very much. All right, 1E, this is time for public comments. We're gonna start out introducing the state championship recognition, the Southeast Polk Rhythmettes. Mary Ann and crew, you wanna come up?
Are you gonna go down?
30-minute speech.
Okay.
Order.
I think this is our biggest group so far this year. There you go.
We should have kept the photographer here.
Yeah.
I just want to say how proud I am of these girls. You know, the expectation's always so high for them, and every year they rise to the occasion. This year was no exception. They looked amazing at state and took home state championship again. So congratulations, girls.
Way to go. We're really proud of it. All right. Right. Look at them, they know to die. The guys could use some pictures from there. They put in work.
All right, is everybody ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. We're gonna do another one. 1, 2, 3. And just for fun, 1 more. There we go. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good job.
Congratulations.
Thanks for coming.
They're like, where's my?
There we go.
Just for the record, is there anybody else that would like to make a public comment? Jason, are you gonna make a public comment? Good. State your name and where you live. All right, seeing nobody else, we'll move along to 1F consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thanks, Rick.
Second.
Whitney?
Yep.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any questions or comments for administration? All right, Karen?
Chad,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Bridget.
Yes.
All right. Item 2, new and old business. 2A, second read of policies.
Motion to approve the second read of the policies.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions on these policies? All right, Karen?
Rick,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
All right, two B, this is for public hearing, the plan specifications for high school and Altoona Elementary roof projects. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll move that we open the public hearing.
We can just open it? Okay, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 5:35 PM, just in case anybody's wondering. You live in Alaska or something? Darren, you want to say anything on the roof? You good? Okay, well, we won't waste any more time. Oh, Kevin, did we have any other written public comments? All right, thank you. I even asked Dirk about that at the beginning. I forgot to do it, so thank you. All right, having no public hearing on that, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 5:36. And we just need a motion to approve the plans and specs.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Karen?
Kelly, Kelly,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes. All right, 2C, this is the FY fiscal year 25 administrative proposal that was shown to us last meeting. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Karen?
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
All right, 2D, this is for the change order, building and grounds maintenance, building parking lot expansion. This has to do with the fencing and gates.
Motion to approve.
Second. Thank you. Karen?
Whitney,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
All right. Moving right along to topics for discussion, item 3A, this will be the teacher of the year, Mr. Lupton. Well, Mr. Lupnick's not the teacher of the year, but.
No, we're fortunate to have Crystal Colbert with us. She came at the beginning of the year, told us we'd get a mid-year report and an end of the year report. So we are mid-year. Excited to hear what she has to say.
Great. Well, thank you for having me here tonight. My teacher of the year journey started over a year ago already, which is just kind of wild to think about. Some days I feel like I've been doing this for years and years, and other days I feel very much like a novice and I just started yesterday. So my intent is to go ahead and share with you what I've been up to. Jeannie graciously created this graphic for me. And I think it really represents my year pretty well. I feel like every day I wake up and I'm in a different place with different people and doing different things. And so my intent today again is to just kind of update you on what I have been doing and where in the world I have been. So during my sabbatical year, just as a reminder, I serve under the Department of Ed. And these are kind of the 5 main roles that I kind of group all of my activities into. And I will talk about each of them a little bit more separately. So one of the most fun parts of this job is that I get to do a lot of traveling. And part of being the state teacher of the year is when you also get to join the national teacher of the year program. And so last January, I started traveling. In September, I updated you on my trips to California, the White House, and Space Camp. And so today I'm going to talk to you about my trip to Princeton, New Jersey in November. I was able to travel with the other state teachers of the year for the Impact and Influence Conference. And this conference meant a lot to me because after having a year of professional development, it was just a great time for me to reflect on my role and my responsibility as a teacher leader here at Southeast Polk and how I can continue to best serve our district and our schools. So that was a very impactful travel. And then In January, I was able to attend the national championship college football game. And that was a +1 event, so my husband was incredibly excited. We learned about this trip about a year ago, and he said, Crystal, no matter what happens in this next year, we're gonna make this work because I'm going to that game. So there he is, enjoying the national championship, and Michigan won. And then up on the screen, you can see all of the other fun activities that we got to participate in. And one of those activities is attending Fan Central. And something that happens there is every state teacher of the year is able to participate in the Eckridge football toss. And if you make it into the circle, then you win your school $1,000. And I have a video to share with you.
Whoa.
We have any IT people around that can?
Well,
It was a good video. I
it
saw it on
was a
Facebook.
great video. It's right here on my computer too.
There it is, there it is.
Okay. If not, that's okay too.
It's on Facebook too. So.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
That's not fair.
Well, that's okay. I'm sure you can imagine what happened. I made it in the circle and I won. Thank you. And I won Mitchellville Elementary $1,000. My son definitely thinks that he had a big part in this because he had a big plans to be part of the Rams football team when he gets to high school. And so we are constantly, he's out in the yard running around, throwing to him. So he definitely thinks that I helped, he helped make sure that I was able to make that football into the hole. So really fun. I am choosing to use the funds to purchase books for the book vending machine at Mitchellville. That is something new that we have this year. And those books are consumable because we have lots of kids taking them home to read them. So I'm going to use the $1,000 to continue to purchase books for the book vending machine. Something else that I spent a lot of time doing in my Teacher of the Year experience is working with teacher prep programs across the state. And this is probably one of my favorite things that I get to do. I've always hosted student teachers and practicum teachers, and I absolutely love helping emerging educators fall in love with teaching. And so that's what I get to do when I visit these teacher prep programs. Listed on the screen, you can see some of the places that I have visited since about September, with many, many more places yet to visit in the spring. I've been able to meet with over 700 pre-service teachers. I've traveled lots and lots of miles to be there with them, and I've loved every moment of it. When I go to visit colleges and universities, I get to share my platform of choosing grace. So exercising love and kindness, mercy and favor toward our students, our colleagues, our administrators, and what that looks like and feels like in our classrooms. And then grace is also an acronym for the 5 priorities that I focus on every day in my classroom that bring me a lot of success and joy. And those are listed right there. Growth mindset, relationships, all means all. So that collaborative piece of teaching, celebrating, and then evolving. Oftentimes I'm also asked to do breakout sessions after giving a keynote speech. So those are some areas that I have led breakout sessions in. And then I had a really unique opportunity when at Luther College to sit on their advisory committee. And we looked at IACTI data, which I've never looked at before. And we talked about the need for preparing for assistant practitioners. So that was a really neat experience to have as well. I was also in charge of planning and preparing the Emerging Educators Academy that took place in January at Drake University. The current Teacher of the Year is always in charge of planning this conference. It was our 9th annual conference, so it's been in the works for a long time now. Over 125 emerging educators attended. And what makes this conference really special is that it is for teachers and by teachers. So every presenter is a teacher. Every keynote speaker is a teacher, because I am a firm believer that the best professional development comes from those who are in the classroom teaching. So we encourage pre-service teachers to attend, as well as teachers in their first, second, or third year of teaching. This year, the theme was elevating teachers, elevating learning. We had roundtable discussions, breakout sessions, and then my dear friend, Rebecca Peterson, the 2023 National Teacher of the Year, was able to travel from Oklahoma and be our keynote speaker for the day. So it was an incredible event. Some pictures. And then finally, just my overall kind of hat that I wear throughout this year is to be a voice for students and teachers in Iowa. And I think that one of the best ways to be an ambassador for education is to do lots and lots of learning. And I've taken that very seriously this year. I've attended a lot of conferences. I'm part of a monthly speaker series. And then I'm also back in school at Northwestern College earning my teacher leadership certification. I also serve on the teacher advisory committee at the state level. Director Snow also just mentioned a few weeks ago that there's going to be a restructuring of the Teacher of the Year program. We want to be able to elevate and celebrate more teachers in our profession. And so I'm hoping to be able to be a part of that. And then I also will serve on the teacher selection committee for the 2025 Teacher of the Year. So I spoke really fast because I've had a lot to say, but that in a nutshell is what I have to. So, thank you.
It's very exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. 3B Prairie Meadows Community Betterment Grants. Mr. Gordon?
I'm the one who left the folder at your place settings because it's almost like kind of more like a Joe update than it is actually Prairie Meadows. But on the left-hand side of the folder, there are 3 out-of-state trips in there that came in just this morning. I wanted to get them to you all right away as part of our policy. One group, the Key Club's going to Omaha, the Wind Ensemble's going to Kansas City, and our Spanish students going to Costa Rica. Sounds fun, doesn't it? But I just want to make sure you all have that information in front of you. If you have any questions or whatever, feel free to, shoot me an email or whatever. On the right-hand side, we've got our normal enrollment, it kind of comes to you 2 times a month. But probably the piece that's part of the agenda anyway is Prairie Meadows Community Betterment Grants. Some basics listed there about these particular grants. They range from $100 to almost $100,000. Community betterment grants, in the words of Prairie Meadows, strengthen and expand opportunities, infrastructure, and services offered within the community, which makes it a really nice fit for schools, to be sure. For about the last 15 years, maybe more, we have consistently submitted proposals and projects and been the beneficiaries of a lot of awards. And then with the idea that our loose expectation is that each school each year submits a grant proposal of some variety. Now, sometimes it's not possible, and I get it. Like I'm thinking about like Spring Creek and the junior high, and they're so busy with the transformation that's about to occur. I'm not sure throwing a grant opportunity in there is, will be possible for them. But in the years to come, I'm sure they will, if they haven't already. I think I've received one so far, but which kind of takes me to the timeline of all this. January 23rd, I worked with the elementary and secondary principals and just kind of notify them, hey, it's that time again this year, and we're looking at community betterment grants through Prairie Meadows. And then on the 29th, I sent everybody a reminder just to keep this kind of opportunity at the forefront of their minds. And tonight, obviously, we're doing a short intro to all of you. Many of you have not, or some of you, maybe not many, but some of you have not been through this process yet. And then on the 9th of February, each school, that's kind of our internal deadline. All the proposals come to me, and then Dr. Hlepnick and I and the cabinet sit down and examine all of them. And then bring them back to all of you on February 15 for vote. And then we have to have a resolution that comes from all of you that goes to Prairie Meadows about, yeah, hey, we endorse these particular projects, and that goes out, that'll go out the 16th, the day after the board meeting, to all the schools who are participating. And then those particular schools will submit their proposals to Prairie Meadows on the 29th of February. So it's kind of a quick turnaround. This one got up on us a little bit in terms of the scheduling and the deadline and the numbers of board meetings we've had since we've come back from break. But it's always a really good, positive process, and gives us yet another opportunity to innovate and do some things that maybe without these funds we couldn't do. So I just speaking for all of us, I know we appreciate the opportunity. Any questions at this point? You get to see a lot of stuff next meeting on the 15th. And if the rest of them are like the one I've seen already, they're going to be really good, because I went, wow, this might be one of the better proposals I've seen in a long time. So I'm excited about where everybody's going. Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 3C, middle school junior high activities update. It's a 30 slide presentation, you said. Read every one.
Word for word, please.
We are changing.
So part of the impact of opening a new building and a grade realignment is the impact it potentially has on activities. So Darren Carpenter and I have both been spending some time over the course of the past year, kind of going through some different things and coming up with a plan on what the overall impact or changes would be in the activities department with the building change. So just so you know, kind of our steps were just to get input from program coaches, sponsors, and directors about what they wanted to see. And then just some considerations on how to best utilize facilities within the district. For the first time, both of us were able to go to the new middle school the other day. We wanted to go inside and just get an idea. It was important, like, to get a feel for the space, and in particular, what could some of those spaces be used for. We both visited with administration at Ankeny and Waukee. They have similar structures to us, just to get a better understanding of what works well, what are some of the pain points, and just to get some inputs from districts that have been through it. So I can speak for the high school standpoint. I think for the most part, the overarching theme is for the high school, there's just not a tremendous amount of impact. If you go through these slides, a lot of things are going to remain exactly the same as they are now. Darren, I don't know if you want to speak any in the fall. We start with the fall athletics, the sanctioned ones, and what changes are there. You can speak on probably the biggest need or possible change.
Overall, for the 8-9 area, junior high athletics, junior high activities, similar to what Mr. Campbell was talking about, we don't really see any kind of changes that will occur with this. The biggest things that are going to happen is basically locations that some teams may be practicing at. Part of our reasoning for going to see the 6-7 building was to see the opportunities that might be available there for some of our teams to use. It's a very impressive building. That is a massive undertaking that's been done, and it's going to be something incredible to see online. Overall, like we were talking about, the most part of this is going to be transportation probably. Some of our groups are going to be moving from place to place. We might have a seventh grade group that's gonna be at the new building that needs to come to the junior high. We might have a eighth grade group that's at the junior high and needs to go to the 6-7 building to have a practice. So transportation is probably gonna be the biggest consideration throughout the whole thing. But for what opportunities will be provided to these kids, everything should be very similar to what we have available right now.
You can take a look, like, just for example, one small change is if you look on sanctioned athletics in the winter boys basketball right now, the varsity plan is right now, the varsity to practice at the new middle school. Obviously, they compete at the 10-12. Why would we do that? Well, there's gym space there. Our head basketball coach is located there. But another benefit that we have is that the group that's toughest to work practice around a lot of times is 9th grade. So school ends at the end of the day. You've got your varsity teams in the main and auxiliary gyms. The girls tend to split their varsity JV. Their JV team goes over to Spring Creek. That leaves our 9th grade boys in a little bit of a tough spot. There's really not a place for them to go. They tend to have to go later. That's not great for 9th graders. Sometimes once they leave, it's tough to get them back. We think if we have the majority of our varsity players are able to drive, they can practice at the middle school. 9th grade can go right away after school. The boys, that potentially solves an issue, makes that a little more efficient, I think, for them. That's just an example of something we look at. Another pain point my whole entire time here has been, they were here tonight, is the Rhythmettes. Really tough to find a dedicated space for the Rhythmettes to be able to have a practice space. And so they tend to move around wherever they can until they get kicked out somewhere. And we're really hoping with that middle school, I talked with Mr. Bala, with the new middle school online with those gyms, that we can provide them a more dedicated space that they can practice every day. So I will say, whoever had the foresight to put a wrestling room in the new middle school, like, hats off to them. I remember thinking at the time, like, oh, is that really something we need? And if we didn't have that right now, that would be a real issue. As most of you know, the state of Iowa sanctioned girls wrestling last year. So, we have a multitude of teams. The high school, we have, obviously, boys varsity and boys JV comprised of multiple groups. The girls, as their program starts to grow, we need a place for them to kind of land, and then our junior high program. So high school boys will largely stay where they're at right now. The high school girls will move over and under our plan to the junior high school. The rationale behind that is our training staff is kind of between those two to have the varsity groups there. Darren, if you want to talk about junior high wrestling with the girls and the boys and how that would work.
Yeah, we're thinking that the junior high girls can work in with our varsity group at this time for numbers wise and space wise. That'll work well for them. That's part of our transportation issue as well. We'll have 7th grade girls that'll be coming over to the junior high for that practice. And then our 7th and 8th grade boys practice will be at the new 6-7 building. So then we transport the opposite way and move our 8th grade boys down to the middle school, a facility there that, like Mr. Campbell said, is a great benefit to us. And then it also works well with our head coach for junior high boys, with him being in that 6-7 building for his teaching.
Moving on to the fine arts and school sponsored activities, I would say overall, again, the changes are relatively minimal. Some of those things will be, 9th grade will kind of be absorbed into what happens at the junior high. There's a couple exceptions. Pep band, there's nothing to really replicate 9th grade pep band right now at the junior high. So they would come and stay at the high school. Dance, drill, the Rhythmettes, again, right now we don't have a program at that level. So those 9th graders would come over and still have an opportunity to try out and participate with our high school dance program. Cheer right now, same thing. We don't have a junior high cheer program. So as of now, the 9th graders would try out and be able to come over. These are all things that I think, this isn't chiseled in stone. This is our vision right now. If there's something that doesn't work or we need to change, that's our job to evaluate those things and look at it. But, we could, year one, this is kind of our vision and consider the potential of implementing ninth grade cheer in the future. The one kind of interesting one is the dramatic play. Right now, the spring dramatic play would be 10 through 12 at the high school. So it's the ninth graders, the musical at the junior high school is in the spring. So those two kind of conflict with each other. Otherwise, we would have brought ninth graders over to participate in the dramatic play, but they have a similar opportunity in the junior high school with their musical in the spring.
So in the, okay, so in the fall, they'll stay at the junior high. Both they'll stay in the, for both plays. Ninth graders will stay at the junior high. They won't ever participate in the play for 10, 12.
So the musical is going to stay at the high school will be 10, 12. They do have a musical offering at the junior high school. It's in the spring. So we feel like they can get that opportunity in the junior high.
What about numbers though? I think we fill in like the bigger numbers. And this, I haven't talked to anybody over drama right now, so I'm just asking. We fill in a lot at the high school with ninth graders into the larger numbered musicals. So will that be covered or will we be
I think
short?
our musical is grown enough that the participation, our directors at the high school feel comfortable with
The way
the
that's
10, 12. I
Okay.
mean, we got their input on this and that's kind of their vision right now.
Okay.
It's a little different than the show choir. The show choir, we want to stay right now, 9, 12, because those numbers are an issue with show choir in particular
Okay.
with males.
Right, and
So-
that's always, I think, been the
Yeah.
case with the boys,
But I think the numbers have grown. The musical has gotten pretty popular.
it fills the auditoriums, both of
The
them.
auditorium, it
Yeah.
does, yeah.
Similar question, about the Jazz 1 is 10 through 12. And I know that's a like class during
It's
the
a
day.
curricular class. Right.
Are there any concerns about like enough participation, like numbers wise for that as well? Cause like Jazz 2 and 3, a lot of the members of those jazz bands are playing like secondary instruments that are also in Jazz 1. And I haven't talked to anyone either, like Lori just said, so.
Yeah, again, these are conversations I had with our instrumental music people. Jazz 3, that one kind of comes and goes depending upon how much interest there is.
Mhm.
Everything I've got back from them that's not a concern for them right now. I am just having conversations with Mr. Girth and Victoria at the junior high today, just about kind of how this was structured. Again, I don't want to tell you this is 100%. We've got it just down exactly, but I feel like this is what they feel right now. It's more of kind of a matter of who's doing what at the junior high and what does that position look like. But I think from a numbers standpoint, they all feel pretty good about what we have down here.
Okay.
I want to,
I had a couple more questions,
Yep,
but
go ahead.
I don't see like band in here. And I think we talked a little bit about it in the last meeting, but how is that going to work? Like we have marching band, symphonic band, wind ensemble, which
Yep.
they auditioned for, concert band.
Well, marching band, you can chime in here, Mr. Pettit, with some of this, right? Marching band being curricular.
Yeah, make sure he's got the microphone.
Yeah, the ninth graders will have the opportunity to participate, try out for the high school's marching band. The other curricular bands will be 10 through 12. And then there'll be ninth grade options for curricular bands at the junior high. So the only curricular band that ninth graders can participate in the high school building will be that marching band at the beginning of the fall.
And then the other part of the year, they'd be part of whatever the curricular band is at the junior high.
Correct.
Okay.
And then there is the jazz band extensions beyond the curricular component at the junior high that they'll be able to do in addition to their curricular bands.
Mhm.
They also have the opportunity to be a part of the pep band during the winter, and that will be at the high school. So the marching band will be 9 through 12, and then the pep band opportunity in the winter, again, from an extracurricular.
9 through 12 for that. Okay. The wrestling. So I think it is great that we've got this middle school with a new wrestling mat, wrestling room. Do you think with like girls wrestling started last year, it's the second year, it's a growing sport. Do you feel like the junior high, like there's enough space there? And you kind of talked about like junior high wrestling and high school at the same time.
Yep.
I know right now they kind of go back and forth between practicing at the high school and practicing at the junior high. But
Yeah, so for the high school, you know, this is where we're at right now. I think that can definitely change over time. In the conversations I know with Tom Cook, and then I know with Tom had with Dwayne, this is what they feel like right now. Can that change? Certainly, you
It
know.
sounds like the numbers in the junior high girls program right now is a very small number.
Okay.
So it won't add a lot to what the high school is. So we feel like there's enough space in that junior high wrestling room that's currently there that the both of them can fit in there pretty easily and have a space that's dedicated to them.
okay. And this maybe is a topic for a different conversation, but as far as the mats that are at the junior high, from what I've heard, they're not quite the same quality as maybe what's at the high school. And I'm sure that there's new mats going in at the middle school. I'm just curious, like, is there a timeline for those to be
I think
replaced?
probably, I'm not a wrestling expert, but at the high school, there's a subfloor that exists that the mats sit on top of. At the junior high, I think it's mat on top of mat. to
Okay.
Provide an extra layer of shock absorption. We do have to come up with a solution. You know, I've been talking with Mr. Bacom, just making sure I understand what's coming in the room at the junior high, and that's definitely something we're gonna have to figure out, mat, subfloor, to make sure it's. And if the floor at the junior high is a concern, I don't know how old those mats are.
I was on the board when we bought them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but I think the club bought them, not the school, when
Okay,
we bought
the
those.
booster club.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are all things we're gonna have to look at, in particular, the flooring in both locations.
Okay, thank you.
I have some comments on, first of all, thank you for doing this. This is, you know, with ninth graders changing buildings and the new middle school opening up, which we're all thrilled with the facilities there. That's gotta be exciting. But, you know, having a document like this that we can all follow, I'm sure saves you guys a lot of questions from people if you can just refer to this document. So kudos for you guys for doing this. My only question, and then maybe I'm not reading that correctly, but on sanctioned athletics during the winter, that page, I think it's page 5. Under boys basketball, it says the ninth graders, and you already said the ninth graders have a big transition because now they're in a different building. It says they will continue to practice and compete and locker at the 10-12 building, that's fine. But if that's going to be the case, don't they need transportation over there?
Well, to be honest, most of those ninth graders, if they drive, they're parked behind Spring Creek. I mean, it's
Okay,
not ideal, but they could ride.
I shouldn't see they didn't have
Depending,
a yellow
depending on,
thing.
I'm not sure, I'm not 100% sure yet how the transportation works. If there's a hub and they can shuttle over that way, that's certainly.
I just noticed on a lot of other ones, there's a yellow thing about a bus going back
Yeah,
and
I'm
forth.
more concerned about a student getting from the junior high to the middle school, or from the middle school to the junior high. Don't get me wrong,
Sure,
when it was
yeah.
40 below zero, it would not be any fun to get from the middle school to the high school.
Right.
Especially when they don't wear coats.
Yeah.
Ever.
So you're thinking a lot of them have their cars in the ones that finish driver's ed or whatever, their cars are right there behind the building anyway.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking?
It's either that or they're gonna ride a shuttle over from the junior
But
high.
are they still gonna have to walk across to get to practice?
There's a tunnel.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, but in the wintertime, that may not be
I mean, there is the possibility, depending on bus routes, that if something is leaving from the
Sure.
junior high and then going to the high school, that they do ride that bus and then get off at the high school. We said,
Yeah.
see how the transportation works.
I was just, as I was looking at it, thinking,
Yeah.
those kids, what are they gonna do?
And some may ask us, well, why don't they practice at the junior high? I just came from junior high boys basketball games just on my way here, and they're playing A, B, C, D, E, F right now. So, so there's really is no space right now for that group, so a better option at this moment than having them go home, ride the bus home, then truly, a lot of kids just don't have a way to get back then.
You have another question? I have one comment, and that's just to say, I realize this is all in flex and
Yeah.
will remain in flex, and you guys will adjust next year as needed, et cetera, all of it. I won't hold you to any of it.
Appreciate it.
Hopefully the parents won't either, but it looks good for now.
Yeah, probably the biggest question is the last page miscellaneous is dance.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, that's our vision.
Yeah. And for the record, I only got one call from parents about when it was really cold, getting from over by the junior high to the
Yeah.
basketball, just one, which I was surprised by.
I just got one question on your miscellaneous.
Sure.
So obviously homecoming is a big thing for
Yeah.
freshmen. Freshmen, it's 9 through 12 for a dance normally.
Has been.
So will they allow a homecoming dance at the junior high then for, because I've had a couple calls on this one. I have spoke to somebody about this one, and they're not happy. So I think you're gonna get a little pushback on this one, but doesn't make a difference to me. I'm not a dancer. I know that surprises a lot of you, but
I believe in the past, the 7-8 building has had a dance on our homecoming. They just had it like basically after school. And then that way they could go from being at the dance to straight to the football game.
football.
So that might be something that would continue at the 8 building. We just have to see how the administration there wants to work with things and how it can be developed and stuff.
Yeah, doesn't make a difference to me either way. I mean, but I think if you're gonna allow freshmen to do some things at the high school, maybe that's something that you consider keeping the way. Again, it's not me, but I guess we'll see what the pushback is on it when.
Yeah,
when
like I
it's-
said, that's our
after
vision at
today's-
this moment,
yeah.
kind of tried to follow what other districts have done, but I understand when these changes happen,
It's tough on people.
it's tough on.
And it takes a few years to evolve to the new thing,
Yeah.
whatever that is.
And I guess looking into it, I think it's okay because they weren't in the building already.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's just. And I guess, I know we're not, because this year we're talking about very minimal changes, but. It's almost like if you're gonna make the changes everywhere. You gotta do it at some point.
Yeah,
So it's hard to go back. I guess it's hard to go back then, because then somebody misses out on. So I don't know, maybe you stay status quo this year and then tell everybody. 'Cause I don't think people were expecting, I mean, they were expecting it, but they weren't expecting it to have a change. I guess when you look through there and you see these freshmen can do certain things, but certain freshmen can't, I guess when I heard no changes, I just figured it was everything's gonna stay status quo the first year, but again, it's not, it's not a heartburn right now. I guess we'll see how it goes. Yeah. So, yes, but also glad to hear that it's still flexible. When's the drop dead that you have to make the decisions, the final? For everything that freshmen get to do or don't get to do next year, or
I don't, honestly, I haven't thought about what the drop dead. I think this just kind of went out and was in, board minutes. and we
September
had it done.
28th is the dance, September 27th is the.
So, got, at least for the dance between now and then, for everything else. Kind of see what the feedback is and see if there's really a lot of painful points that we need to look at adjusting, but I mean, most of this stuff, it's such minimal changes across the board that I would think a lot of stuff is pretty easy to change.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's a good proposal, I think. I mean, it doesn't spark any nervousness for me, but other than just what having some being able to do certain things and some can't.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
tried as much as possible to go by the guiding principle. If we can replicate it at the 8-9 building, then it should stay there. But that's not 100% perfect. It's just kind of I think we tried to say, let's take the school sponsored activities, fine arts and sports. And we realized like, we're never going to get out of a 9th grade girls basketball, potentially playing varsity, or a 9th grade wrestler, potentially playing varsity.
So that's kind of the more the mindset, the sponsored sanctioned ones are.
Yep, and then
staying
the
clubs
student-led clubs, those are kind of high school specific. If they want to replicate them at the 8-9 building, that's something they can do. The only kind of exception to that was rugby. We kind of look, it's a little bit different animal in terms of being a student-led club, that I don't think that would fly to say, no, we're not gonna have 9th graders.
It may be kind of like show choir, there's not enough people to put a team or something.
Yeah,
maybe, or-
probably.
Well, I like the proposal. I mean, then if we get gonna work, and I mean, the future is pretty bright for these kids anyway, no matter what it looks like, so. So thanks for putting it all together, and anybody have any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 3D district projects for summer 2024. Mr. Haynes. Come on down.
Evening, members of the board. What's been presented to you is budgetary amounts. At this point in time, there are some of these projects that I will need to get quotes for. We start with the building envelopes updates. That's for the roofing replacements at the junior high and Altoona elementaries. Those will be going out for bids, so we'll know what the actual dollar amount is, but we've got budgetary amounts set aside for that. I can review each one, or if you have any questions, we can start with those.
I asked my questions, other than make sure you add the junior high pool to this summer's list.
We make a great wrestling room.
There we go.
Bite your tongue.
Problem solved.
It's that easy.
What a fun floor.
But we've gone through each of the items. These are Dr. Halapnik has set and read this with me, and we've discussed things. One thing I've started to do different this year to be more accommodating for Mr. McComb and his departments and offices is that I'm already getting quotes for budgetary amounts, setting those aside for 2025, summer of 2025 and summer of 2026 at this point in time. Rather than wait for right now, we've got to get it, put it in and go with it. It gives us a broader picture, and we can look at the overall picture and evaluate the projects more. The district has a lot of needs, doesn't always have the money to do so. So I look forward to that. I feel that it is a great way to go, planning further ahead on my part than I have been in the past.
Gary, what's the building envelopes?
Building
update?
envelopes is the senior or junior high and Altoona roof replacements. Sewer repairs at TLRC. Sewer line underneath the flooring in that building has settled, so now we have a pocket underneath there that doesn't let everything flow out. So that's a jackhammer of the floor to replace that and properly reinstall everything.
Is the high school main entrance concrete gonna be colored or regular?
Regular. It'll match. It'll match the concrete replacement we did last year on the west side entrance.
Okay, but the orange will still be there on the east side.
No.
It will go away?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's very costly to do all the different pours and different colors and all
Good.
that. And we're replacing concrete that probably didn't have the proper depth maybe to
Yeah,
begin with. We're putting a thicker depth on that so we can do proper snow removals with equipment
okay.
without destroying it. And other contractors' vehicles that need to come on there at periodic times.
Can withstand ice melt.
Sand and ice melt's a big factor. It's a huge evil in my book. on
I know,
concrete.
but I still like it when it's icy.
It helps. Thank you. The elementary gymnasium floors and cafeteria flooring that need repairs and replacements from last year did not get accomplished. So I used those monies for this existing year and moved the project to this coming summer. So that will be taken care of. High school deck, pool deck repair, and then with the laws that change on, we've had a lot of laws changing on how we have to do pool facilities. So a lot of it now we have to have a sink right there handy to wash your hands prior to the sample taking of the testing, and also immediately after. I don't know what initiated that, other than maybe somebody with doing auto mechanic work went in and did a pool test, so it contaminated it. So it's to replace that. And then we'll be replacing the pool deck cracks, chipped, missing tiles. It's had several years of constant use, so it's time to bring it back up to where it should be.
Almost 15 years.
Yeah, gone by fast.
Yeah.
HVAC blower, that's the HVAC unit. If you'll notice in the pool ceiling, it's all perforated. That's to draw all the air from that room up through the ceiling and exhaust it out. Otherwise, you get a huge buildup of chlorine odors in there that's not healthy. And that unit has gotten wore out. Chlorine is very corrosive on everything in that area. Got boiler repairs to do at the high school. High school, we've got light fixture repairs to accomplish. Then we go to 4 Mile classrooms. We've got a classroom that for quite some time has been used as a storage room for their needs, and now with their growth, we need to convert that back to a classroom. So we have emptied that room out. We'll be replacing the carpet. That carpet was there long before I started here, so it's more than due. And then we'll be cleaning it up, painting, and getting it a classroom for their needs. Junior high at the south main entrance, I call it, that goes to the exterior into the back hallway. We've got carpet mats down there, but it gets a lot of traffic, a lot of football traffic, athletic traffics. And with the carpet matting that we use, it's actually can be a trip hazard, and it's very costly to replace it anymore. So that would be for the walk-off carpet matting squares, similar to what we have here at the front entryway and the back door. Okay. It's worked out very well in every building we put it in, so I'm looking forward to that. High school main entrance concrete, we just reviewed that. And then at Centennial, we've got the sidewalks that need to be brought back up to safety standards, and the north lot completely redone. And entrances replaced over there. I know the city has been talking with me about repairs and replacements at that location as well. So, and then we've got concrete replacements to do on the south parking areas as well, and curb replacements.
Okay.
Gary, is the gym and cafeteria flooring, is that all of them, or is it on a rotation, like different schools each year?
We went through and evaluated each building,
Okay,
and some it was a complete replacement, others it's a repair.
okay. Thank you.
But are you doing them all this summer?
Yes.
Okay.
They didn't. The challenges we've had with inflation is one, personnel for different companies, it's been another, just like we've dealt with at times too. So that's where we got into that situation last summer.
Very
So
good.
this will come back next meeting for approval, so
Okay.
we'll get out for bid.
you.
Those things that need to.
Just one question. So on each side of the entrances of the high school, there's those big round concrete things. I suppose at one time they actually worked and did what they were supposed to do, transferring water to the plants on the
Water
edge of
still
the.
goes to them, but yeah, it's a different layout design.
Yeah, I don't know if the plants are really plants anymore, if they're.
The plants, it worked great if you were in Arizona, but in Iowa with ice melt that flows right into it, it does not.
It
work.
never worked.
Yeah.
It
And they,
destroyed the plants the first year we
Yep.
had. them.
Yeah, so is there something that we can do different with those?
Yes.
Those are like
We would need to have a meeting and discussion with. them,
large
but yeah,
garbage cans,
Mhm.
and they just,
You know, it can be
Yeah.
utilized as a nice venue area for collaborations with students and so on.
and I think some of the classrooms over time have been putting flowers and plants in there, but I don't think they stay.
They just don't.
Looks really
work
bad.
out.
Other summer, they break for
I
summer.
don't think I've ever seen plants on the side, but there's plants along the sidewalk.
Hmm,
But
we'll put them
There
on the
used to
east
be
side.
those too, they didn't work out either.
Yeah,
As soon as school gets out for the summer,
Rocks.
everything disappears
Yeah,
because
sometimes
it's
it's
summer
trash.
heat then.
There's always options.
so we could add that to your list sometime, and then
They'll do that.
Along with the junior high
We're glad
pool.
to.
the statue of glory or something.
Put a rainbow.
Hey, Gary, on your future needs, are those in any type of priority listing or? That
Those are
second
just
chart?
things that we have discussed over time.
Cause they're all important, obviously, with the Willowbrook classroom and the Delaware remodel, that's somewhere on your radar, right? I mean, it's
So which part? I'm sorry.
the schools, the classroom at Willowbrook and the Delaware remodel, that's on your radar at least for down the road.
Yes, it sure will be. I don't have a full total list put together for future next year and the year after and things like that,
Right.
but I'll be meeting with principals and evaluating their needs.
I guess the only question I have on that
Changes
future is that,
very rapidly.
does future sometimes mean the following summer? Is it several summers down the road or is it?
All the above.
All the above.
So, I mean, the two you identify are multi-million-dollar projects, so there's a funding issue that goes along with,
Is this Save Dollars, Pepple?
yes.
Yes, both?
Thank you, Gary.
Kevin.
Thank you.
This is great, Gary. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll be keeping up and I'm sure we'll have throughout the summer when I have some time, I'll continue to get different budgetary ideas and projects that I can have a better look at. It's not covered by snow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary. All right, 3 fiscal year 25 budget discussion, part 1.
Good evening, board. Let me tell you ways not to spend money now. This is our first shot looking at the 2025 budget. Next year's budget, you may think is late into that. This is actually 2 weeks
It's-
ahead of time.
Yes.
Good job.
First budget right here. Couple different reasons for that, and we'll go through this as we talk further. I'm gonna try to go slow. If I go too fast, slow me down or catch me later. Jason. First, the purpose of publishing the budget is to establish the maximum school tax rate. This is kind of a 5,000-foot level. Again, this is not how we're spending the money yet. We'll have several different discussions during this time between now and April 30th to determine how we spend that. And we still don't know everything that we need to know when it comes to school budget. We know that supplemental state aid was something that was recommended by the governor, but has not been passed by the legislature. And just wanted to let you know there is a timeline to a change of additional public hearings for the budget process this year. And I'll show you that as we go through. District funds, those ones that are asterisk there, are part of our tax levy. The budget driver that you see there, just talk about supplemental state aid. Proposed the governor's 2.5% increase for supplemental state aid. This includes typically all categoricals, but that doesn't have to necessarily be that way. It has been that way since we've split those things out, however. Have not heard anything about any kind of funding formula equity for transportation equity. We current year receive about $240,000 for transportation equity. And what that means is our transportation cost per students is a little bit higher than what the state average is. So the state gives us money to get us down to that average amount.
How does that impact what we're charging was it?
Has
108?
no impact. What we charge students and families for transportation that are inside our mileage, just subsidizes the cost. It doesn't pay for costs of anything as far as the transportation of, total cost of transportation for those students, I guess what I'm trying to say. So there's no impact on the charges for those students and families.
You really confused me. So why do we charge the families? Just because it's
To help pay for cost of transportation in general, but it doesn't pay for the cost of transportation in total.
It only covers part of it.
It just subsidizes the cost of the transportation. In
because
the
we're
entire school district.
say, okay, start at the beginning then, because you lost me. So
our charge of, I want to say it's $100 and $30 now for students and families per semester. Is far less than what it actually costs to transport those students. I mean, I can tell you that other school districts in the metro area charge in the $300
no, I get that,
ranges.
but no, I'm asking you to go back to what you said for your last slide, the transportation equity. So we get money for this from the state for.
Yeah, so at the end of every year, we file our certified annual report, our state supplement, our special education supplement, and then the annual transportation reports. Every school district files the same transportation report, and then it's lined up whatever the average cost to transport a student is. If we're above that average, we get money for that. We get a little bit of money to kind of subsidize our cost to try to bring it down to the state average.
And it would cost us more because we have to bus them further. Is that?
It's just because we are the way we are, the number of miles we drive, our cost per student, as far as transporting students, is higher than the state average. If you just rank all the school districts in Iowa and Des Moines Metro, for example, if they weren't using urban buses or MTA buses, their cost would be much less because their proximity is closer. We're just a little further away. We're covering more areas, more mileage. I'm sorry, I thought your question was referring to the student.
Well, it is, but
fees.
so question is why we charge if we're getting some of that money back because of our expenses.
It just gets a little bit of our money back. I mean, the cost of transportation just for special education itself is about $1 million as far as special education students themselves. Our cost of transportation as a whole, I don't have that number in front of me, but it's far more than what we would charge families for transportation.
No,
And
I
that's
get,
the
I mean, I
people
get
that are
that.
within the mileage.
No, I get that.
Okay.
I'm just still wondering why we charge if we're getting money back. I know we're not getting it all, but I mean, transportation is transportation. But anyway, that's another conversation for another time.
I mean, it's analogous to charging instructional fees to families. It doesn't pay for the cost of instruction materials that we buy. It just offsets the cost a little bit.
I know, we're supposed to be public education, and every time we charge things, it just drives me nuts, so.
Cost per pupil, it goes up $191. It's assuming a set 2.5% SSA. Our number of students between last year and this year is an actual decrease of students, just less than 0.2%. We have a net negative in open enrollment this year, a little bit better than we had net negative last year. You can see those other factors as well as regarding ELL students and preschool students. Wages and benefits for classified and certified staff, those are both wages are open. We don't know what the effects are yet for premium increases when it comes to our benefits. And thank goodness IPER contributions have remained unchanged for the past 3 years, at least 3 years. We will, I'll have my notes. We will have a insurance committee meeting, I think on February 19th. So we might have some numbers by that point in time.
Switching carriers.
We are not switching carriers. We will be looking at a change, at least RFP process for the 25-26 school year.
So all those problems that have gotten fixed then that. when we
But we
first got
get
it.
far less, for sure. This is just a quick snapshot. Again, this is just draft, just preliminary budget talks. Based on 2.5% supplemental state aid and enrollment, you can see our new authority is about $1.3 million. Salaries and benefits and other non-personnel costs increases total about $2.4 million. Which you can see we're kind of already in a negative position when it comes to spending authority and increased costs. We have yet to talk about in that model there, any sort of staff increases with regards to middle school administration, anything as far as new year enrollment growth, if those things happen. So just those things that we continue to look at on and on. COVID funding, the ESSER funds, we are done with them at the end of 2024. Actually, we just filed the second quarter claim for ESSER. Learning loss funds have been fully expended, which is great. Our regular ESSER fund, we have about a little over 500,000 left for that. And we think that the long-term sub cost for the second semester is about 300,000. So we will not have any problems spending every single penny of ESSER funds. When it comes to financial indicators, our unspent spending authority at the end of last year, this is unaudited, 19.4%, solvency ratio is 18%, and those are the recommendations by the Iowa Association of School Boards. I think I had some important notes to say about this part. New authority and new money. Oh, Jason, this is PowerPoint. Good job. New authority and new money. Authority versus money. As we talked about just now, we talked about where authority is, how much money we can spend based on our spending authority. Now we talk about how do we fill those buckets of authority with money. You've seen these slides quite often every year, but this is the state funding formula. There is a $5.40 uniform levy across all school districts. And the difference between property poor districts and property rich districts is what you see there as far as state aid components to the property poor and property rich districts.
We're still property poor.
We are getting better to average. Yeah. Again, just a reminder what district funds are. The management fund and general fund are TIF is not subject to those rates. We'll talk about TIF in a little bit, the tax increment financing. Just to remind you of that. Pebble Fund and the debt service fund do take into account all TIF valuation as well. You can see there hopefully what I wanted to show 3 years back. I think I mentioned last meeting that TIF valuations increased over 50% between last year and this year. They dipped down between 23 and 24, but over the 23 to 25 period, TIF valuations went up 13.5%, excuse me, 20.4%, and regular valuation went up 13.5%. So it's a 50% increase in TIF between last year and this year, but over the 3 years, it's about a 20% increase. Still an increase. Valuations themselves overall 11.1% increase. That's good for the district. As far as property taxes and the rate we need to get to garner the money we need. Dropout prevention, you approved this recently, $2.4 million for next year. I'll run through some of these things real quick. SBRC application is for certified enrollment growth. ELL in excess of 5 years and also open enrollment not already reported. Modified, or excuse me, excess ELL 420,000 and then special education deficit. So we had a total of about $4 million available, and we already got that as far as spending authority. But we have a limit to how much reserve we can take for that because of the code limits to 20% of the prior year, less what you have for fund balance. So at most we can get $2.5 million of the $4 million available. Debt service actually went down about 3 cents. The rate does for 25. We have those debt schedules in line already. That rate is $2.15 for next year. Our debt rate limit is actually $4.05. So as you think about some of the things we've talked about already today, and also the possibility of the elementary building down the road, we have some room for general obligation debt should we need to issue that as far as part of our tax rate. The management fund, just to make sure those balances are sufficient for our property and casualty and workers' comp increases, and also any other sort of unforeseen cost that might come through as far as litigation settlements, early retiree incentives all come out of this pot of money. Our tax rate history for the past 4 years, we had 15.44% and stayed flat. After since 2017, we dropped tax rate about 30%. Just to show you a breakdown of kind of the Demar metro area where we stand. Again, we're kind of right in the middle of all those groups.
What did Johnston do?
Johnston, that's a good question. I think he had some debt fall off and he, we all, us SBOs all questioned him as to what he's doing, but he says he's for sure looked at that and it's dead for him at this point in time. New proposed tax notices. Oh, that's good. Budget certification still is April 30th now instead of April 15th. The new notices go out by all counties related to or encompasses Southeast Polk, that includes Polk, Marion, Jasper. It's mailed to all taxpayers. This is all new. What it does, it looks at what we have for property tax dollars for this year. Saying that if we were to get the same property tax dollars for next year, what that rate would be based on our new valuations. I'll explain it a little further here. This is hard to see on the next page. It's also online. But basically what it's saying is that of the money we got last year, if we were to stay just getting that particular dollar amount of money based on our 11% of increase of property tax rates, property tax valuations, our rate would almost go down $1 if we were just to keep those property tax dollars. But for us, that the state foundation aid formula already increases that based on supplemental state aid. Enrollment growth typically would increase that based on supplemental state aid. Some of our tax rates like PEPL, it's $1.67 times a number that's bigger, it's going to be a bigger dollar amount. Those are all the things that are going to be on this new publication notice that we will have to answer questions about from the community. The idea is that the counties will have to mail these notices, actual postal mail notices to every property taxpayer by March 20th. Because of that, I anticipate that we all will get questions from the community as to what's going on, why are we doing this, why are we increasing taxes and that. So it's a good opportunity to educate taxpayers when it comes to what we know about supplemental state aid, student growth, some tax rates being fixed, and some tax rates like our debt service fund might go actually down based on higher valuation rates. There is on this publication notice our opportunity with the mailing for us to have an explanation as to why we're asking for more dollars within 300 characters or less. So I'll try to do my best when that comes up.
Timely, make it timely.
For sure.
You just put a QR code on there.
I'm not sure how they'll do it, but I know it's gonna cost money and I know we don't have to pay for it. Well, directly, I'll just say it that way. Again, mailed by the 20th. We have to hold this is what I term to be public hearing A on this actual notice. This sets our maximum dollars for 25 as far as what we want to garner for property taxes, okay? We still have an opportunity to move within our funds, whether it be management fund or PEPL, or excuse me, management fund or debt service or general fund. We can move within those funds, but we can't go any higher with their property tax dollars. We can't hold a public hearing any earlier than March 25th. The idea is that when the counties mail them out on 20th, 5 days post-annuity to communities and taxpayers, giving them the opportunity to come to a public hearing on the 25th. What I'm asking you to do is to set a public hearing date for March 25th for public hearing A. We'll have discussions up to April 4th. We'll have our normal public hearing, what I call public hearing B, or general, that would show tax rates and what we plan to bring in for revenues and expenditures on April 18th. And then also have you approve on April 18th, and I'll certify by the 30th. So this new process is it's gonna create some questions probably, and some emails and texts and phone calls to everybody. I'm sitting around this table and probably myself as well. But I think it's a good opportunity for us to kind of educate taxpayers too, as we do. Questions?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
When does, the next of our, debt fall off? What year is the next
I'll have to look that up.
debt supposed to fall off? Well, you can let me know if you don't know now. TIF, those numbers are pretty significant addition from both cities. How long did they TIF that money that's come up on there?
Typically it's around a 20-year tip, but I can ask that question to the city.
Do we have any future TIF money falling off anytime soon?
I'll look at that as well.
Okay. And then what is the forecast for when we hear the voucher numbers affected to our school and when we get paid, what we're supposed to get paid, what we lost?
I don't know the exact dates on. Dr.
Yeah.
Monkey Beaver, those exact
No, I haven't
dates,
heard
but
that.
Yeah, you're right, as part
You didn't
of-
have that in here anywhere as
Yeah.
a potential something coming back in, so.
So the budget module that we use as SPOs and business managers is something that's online to Department of Management. That is still being worked through. I went in one day and it was a tax rate. I didn't change it. The next day it was a different tax rate. So I hate to give you these things right now since it's so early, but I also want to make you aware of the things that are coming down early enough so that if you have questions, you can ask them.
And
now.
I'm upset with both cities adding significant amounts of TIF against the school district. I don't know if they've suddenly forgot how we feel about them tipping, and the way it impacts us, but, that's out there and they seem to have gone a little heavy. So that needs to be said that we don't appreciate that every chance that we get.
Sure.
I understand they need to, add things to their municipalities, but, it does impact us.
Yep. And just so you all know, cities and counties are going through the same type of process we are as far as notifying taxpayers and such. So I believe, I don't know how it works from their end, but as a taxpayer, if you own two houses, you might be getting 6 different notices that come to you. So just heads up for that as a community member, but certainly any chance we get. We haven't met with the city recently at all, either side of the city regarding finances, but certainly we'll talk about the TIP aspect.
And how are the valuations impacted if the public protests their valuations?
Public protest to their own personal valuations. Those things, we get notices quite frequently for protests when it comes to not really personal property tax owners, but a lot of the businesses. I seem to see a big retail giant on 8th Street down the road here, appeals about every year. Do those have impact? They would. Come April 30th timeframe. Before that timeframe, the Department of Management makes any kind of those adjustments. And then we get the opportunity then to adjust what we need to from our side. as
For the
well. So
budget?
they could have impact, they may not have them. It just depends on how they're accepted or not accepted.
I just don't want us to bank on one thing and then all of a
Sure.
sudden we have a shortfall.
I would say that from a taxpayer appeal, it's not gonna have a significant impact on the overall valuations. But it's frequently that they are appealed, some are accepted, many are not.
Will you make a quick reference talk sheet for everybody once you get to that point of knowing what those are?
I can, if you guys let me know what you want, what questions you might anticipate, I can throw those out there too, and then I can.
I'm just asking because you said there might be questions, so.
Oh, there'll be
you have
questions.
specific
Oh, yeah.
in your mind.
There'll be questions. Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm looking for is kind of your expertise on what maybe the questions might be and if. Cause I couldn't anticipate what they're gonna ask other than what you
Well-
said, like, why would the taxes go up or?
Sure, it for me, because I'm a little bit more, I'm more intricately involved with this process. Maybe it's for you, if you see a statement that says, hey, school district, you're getting this much money, and if you got the same amount of money, your taxes are going down this much, what kind of questions would you have?
If the
Well-
taxes are going down,
Your tax rate's going down, yeah.
I'm not gonna have any questions probably.
Oh,
But the third column is gonna show you that we want this much money and here's your tax rate.
Oh,
Well, that you just meant blanket statement if it's going down.
No,
If
it'll
it's
show all
going-
3 columns.
No,
Yeah, and the bottom of that publication too, I'm sorry, bottom of the publication to make it a little bit more user friendly or maybe more practical for people, it will show what happens on what's the effect on a $100,000 valuation of a home? And what does that mean to you? It's a, on this sheet, you can't see it real clearly, but I think it's like $117 difference from what we have now for 25 budget.
So 1544, how much would that
Times
affect,
100.
what do you think? I
What's
mean,
that? I'm
what do you,
sorry.
how much do you think that'll offer based on that 1544? How much will that go up, do you think? With all this, will that affect that tax rate?
No,
You're just talking the evaluation.
Yeah.
how much their house went up or down in value.
Yeah, it will just show, what it's showing is that on $100,000 house, your tax rate would have been this, your tax dollars is this back in 24. Based on New Year valuation, it would be this. Here's the difference. So it's a little bit, I want to say it's misleading. And I say that because I know I'm gonna get questions about things once these statements go out. But at the same time, I'm gonna be able to defend what we do here at Southeast Polk when it comes to that money and how we garner those property taxes. Not to mention increases in wages next year, increases in products next year, all those other things that go into running the school district.
What, isn't that a 3% cap? So how does that,
3%, what do you mean by 3% cap? I'm sorry.
so like when my assessment went up on my house, but I'm only getting like 3%. There was that thing that came out last year, was it last year, or the year before? On the 3% cap on the assessments of your house.
I'm not familiar.
You
with
didn't
that,
go up,
I'm sorry.
your taxes didn't go up the full amount of how much your house value increased. It's capped at a certain amount that it increases. So you don't get the full brunt if your house value goes up 100,000. You go up.
I know mine went up, but I didn't get, it's not.
And it also alternates years too, when the valuations change versus what they do from a generic, here's a spitball dollar amount for everybody, so it changed from that as well. We know that COVID and the effects of COVID caused a lot of market fluctuations for those that are in the real estate banking business. That caused a lot of dollar assessed value changes to homes as well, so. These increase, I mean, silver lining from a property tax standpoint, evaluation standpoint, our valuations went up 11%. Our tax rate's gonna be lower simply because they went up 11%. I think that's a silver lining.
It changes really easy. Right, yeah, so I don't know if you think it's.
Yep.
Meaningful to give us some kind of a
Sure.
talking points. I mean, if not, I guess we'll wait and see what questions are, and I'll be like, Kevin.
I can put something together, right?
Well, I mean, don't do it just because I'm just saying if you think that's worthy, but because I can wait until they ask questions if they do. I mean, does anybody else want something or is it?
I think it would be helpful to have some talking
Yeah.
points.
Okay,
Thank you.
Definitely.
all right, thank you. 3F literacy updates.
Good evening, board. As we approach the past midpoint of the school year, reminded of one of our school improvement goals is early literacy. We know the impact that third grade literacy proficiency has on future success in academics. So that's been an intensified goal area of ours. Those who've been able to participate in the school board visits have been able to watch and observe a lot of the structured literacy lessons. And so we have with us this evening, our elementary literacy coordinator, Carrie Bernstein. We just got done with winter testing. So for reporting purposes, we look at fall, winter, and then again in the spring. And so Carrie is here this evening to present some results of that winter testing. Turn it over to her.
Well, thank you for having me, board. We have lots of things to celebrate, and as always, we still have areas to work on because we're not there yet. For those of you who were at when the schools came and visited, you may have heard we're just going to be 1% better, and that was a goal. If you've been to any of the elementary board visits, you may have heard them say, well, we're just going to be 1% better. I started that at the beginning of the year, so I wanted to share the story a little bit. So I have a picture of Chris Nickage, and he was the first person with Down syndrome to complete an Ironman triathlon. So that's really dear to my heart. So an Ironman triathlon is a 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike, and a 26.2 mile run. So he was the first person to complete that. Now, huge task for anybody, right? Down syndrome or not, but his motto was to be 1% better. So we took on that motto as we were adapting new curriculum. We've been we've got an influx of new students. So everything we do, whether that's our students are 1% better or our teaching is 1% better, but our goal was to be 1% better. So I wanted to share my story of Chris with you. I got my Chris shirt on tonight as well. All right, so as we start looking at some of our literacy data, we're going to start with early reading. So early reading is an assessment that is given to our kindergarten students and our first grade students. So let me explain a little bit. So this is the district view of all of our kindergarten and first grade students put together in the first graph. So you can see the dark pink that's on the bottom. Those would be the percent of students at high risk. You've got a little bit lighter shade of pink. That is students at some risk. And then the students in the purple, the light purple, would be the students meeting the benchmark or at low risk. The reason it still says low risk because they're young and they are at risk for success, and they're also risk for failure. So we want to keep pushing as many students as high as we can into that low risk category. So you can see in the fall, that first 64%, we had 64% of our kindergarten and first grade students already proficient to start the school year off. And we grew to 70% in our winter benchmark. So 70% of all of our first grade and kindergarten students are proficient on this assessment. So we can break that down and look at individual grade levels. So kindergarten throughout our whole district, in the fall, we were at 68% proficient. And we typically always see lots of growth with those kindergarten students. We get them in and we start teaching them and they just take it all in. So we have already reached 80% of our students are proficient. And not only that, but we maybe didn't move them all to proficiency, but we moved many of them from that hot pink, from that high risk category to the some risk category. So we haven't closed the gap all the way, but we've started closing the gap for many of them. Here's our first grade students. So in the fall, we were at 59%, and in the winter, we're at 59%. Now you might think, oh, that might not be what we want. However, typically we actually have less students proficient in first grade in the winter than we do in the fall, because the assessment increases in its intensity, its rigor, because they have to be able to read 3 reading passages fluently for 1 minute each time. So the assessment, now they're applying all of those foundational skills. That seems to be an area that we struggle with, but now we have been able to maintain that. So the kids who were proficient stayed there, they were able to do it, and we moved some students, we're closing the gap with some of those students as well. So it doesn't necessarily look where we want to be, but that is an improvement where we have been in the past. In our second, third, and fourth grade and fifth grade students, they do what is called oral reading fluency. They read 3 different passages and they read for 1 minute, and then we mark how many words they read and their percent proficient as far as their errors. So a district as a whole, this is all second, third, fourth, and fifth grade students all together in this graph. In the fall, we had 62% of our students proficient, and we're pretty close. We're at 61% now. Second grade, again, we were at 62, and we are still at 62. Notice though that we've moved some students out of that high risk category to the some risk category. And again, this is another place where they're actually applying all those foundational skills, where we do actually see a dip typically in the winter, and we maintained that. So that is a huge success for our students and our teachers. Third grade, again, putting all those skills together. So we are maintaining at third grade as well. Here's fourth and fifth grade. So, and I have some action steps at the end that we're all working on, but we all recognize areas that we need to continue to focus on. And we know that we'll continue to work with those fourth grade students. And as we've adopted UFly in many of the buildings, we'll see that growth over the years, right? We haven't gotten to those grades yet with those materials. They also take a test called A Reading. It's a computerized test, has 20 questions, and it is assessing their knowledge of the English language. Do they understand closed syllables, open syllables, morphology, prefixes and suffixes, all those things that you heard a lot about during our board visits? That's what A Reading is assessing. They take this in second, third, fourth, and fifth grade. We also take it in at Spring Creek all the way up to eighth grade. Actually, take it all the way to high school. Freshman
Ninth grade this year, wasn't available
through eighth grade. So looking at the district as a whole, we started at, this is everybody. So this is looking at it all the way up through eighth grade. So adding additional other than our elementaries in there as well. We were at 70% in the fall and dipped a slight bit down to 67. Breaking it apart into individual grade levels. So we know that reading fluency, we want to continue to work on that. However, our instruction on the English language is definitely applying their skills, because in second grade, they went from 63 to 68% of the students were proficient. And again, notice that we are moving students out of that high risk category and closing the gap, right? We have to close the gap first before we can get all the way to proficiency, and we're working on closing that gap. Here's our third grade data. Just a slight dip there. Fourth and fifth. I didn't bring the sixth, seventh, and eighth since we were focused on the early literacy scores. We've had lots of talk about UFly this year. We officially had 2 pilot schools, which were Altoona and Willowbrook. Several other schools jumped on board when they heard that they were sort of being left out. We will have all buildings on board next year. But I wanted to highlight the 2 buildings that we actually originally piloted and started with, because their instruction for UFly actually started last school year, not the students' instruction, but the adult instruction, getting all those teachers on board and understanding all the information. Actually, for Altoona and Willowbrook started last year. So I wanted to share some highlights from their data. First, looking at kindergarten in the fall, they were at 77%. They grew to 80, so they had a plus 3%. The super awesome thing is we started UFly in preschool at Altoona last school year. So 1/3 of the students that were in preschool are currently, 1/3 of the students attended that preschool are now kindergartners. They had the highest starting percentage ever at 77%. So when we assessed the students at the beginning of the year, 77% of the students were proficient. They've never had results like that. So starting that in preschool made a big difference. And not only that, those kids maintained it, and we moved some more over into that 80 to reach that 80%. So they had a growth of 3%. First grade, again, I talked about that often that is a grade where they dip down when we add that oral reading fluency part where we have the application of all of our skills, but they grew 3%. And then we can see consistently that growth. Willowbrook is also one of our pilot schools. You can see that they had a growth of 7% in kindergarten, so they had a higher growth, but they also have more students to move because they didn't have that preschool pilot. All the buildings that are doing preschool this year are also doing it in their preschools too. So you might say to me, Carrie, let's look at that -10. So let's talk about that for a minute. So when we're doing UFly instruction, the application part of the oral reading fluency to the connected text is vital, right? Like that's the application of the skills. So I had a conversation with one of the second grade teachers at Willowbrook, and I said to her, I said, okay, we're still working on time management of the lesson. The lesson's supposed to be 30 minutes long and it has to move quickly. So I said on day 2 and day 4, when you actually are practicing the oral reading fluency, do you consistently get to that time? Because it moves quickly. And if you run out of 30 minutes, are you getting to the practice part? She said, I can't say that I consistently do because I need to get more efficient with my time. I need just to keep things moving. So we know that, especially looking at Altoona, when we always, and everybody is struggling with this routine, getting all the pieces in, but we know that when we get them all in, it works. So as a part of our reflection yesterday at PD, we said, okay, how are we going to make sure we get that application and the practice in? Because they're building those skills, the foundational skills, because you can see in their A reading score, they went up 4%. We just have to now put all the practice opportunities in, which we're working on. It will get there. And then we have our third grade. So those third graders were our kindergartners during COVID. So we've got lots of holes that we will continue to fill with those students. Thinking about what are our actions? How are we responding to the data? Because we have lots of data, but we have to know how to respond to it. So currently, I've been helping teacher teams at building levels. Teachers have been analyzing their data. They've been thinking about, okay, looking deeply yet to the data. We've had some new, I've been working with some new data protocols. So not only to look at the end result, but to look at the rate of growth. And we can make some predictions about if a student is not making the appropriate rate of growth, how do we need to make changes for that? So we've been looking at examining that and saying, okay, how do we get all those practice opportunities in? What does that look like? What time is provided for that? And then how are we using our time? Because we could just give, say we just gave 5 more minutes for the U-Fly time. Well, are we using the 30 minutes we have really well, right? So we need to decide how we're using our time. So we're looking at those sorts of things. They're making action plans for all students, college-bound students, students at risk, nobody's getting left out. We're looking at all the students to make an action plan, and we're still going with that 1% motto of we can be 1% better every day. So, questions?
I really like the 1% motto. I think I'm going to take that home with me and apply that in my own life. I don't know. I mean, I appreciate the graphs. I don't know that they tell the story as well as you explaining it. You know, particularly that winter benchmark is harder than the fall. I don't know if it'd be a good analogy, but it'd be like if you ran a mile in the fall and got timed, and then you had to run 2 miles in the winter. Like there's a difference between the complexity and difficulty of that second one. So when you see that and you see something go down anytime in a graph in terms of performance, it looks worse. And I don't think that's probably the case across the board based on the way that you described it. But
I would take your analogy and add one more part to it and say, really, we want all students to be able to run 3 miles. And we know that to start the year, right? We know we need 3 miles. So we're going to do a quick check throughout the year to hopefully get them all to the 3 miles. So we started with the mile and then increasing those expectations because we have our end goal, right? We know what the end goal is. And so how do we do the quick checks along the way? So just like you said, but I'm going to say we got to go 3 since we have 3 checkpoints.
right. So that third one, does that typically go up then, or is it stay level, or?
It depends on the grade level. But I think because we've been looking at growth rates rather just than the end result, we're going to see better results. Because what happens often is when we've looked at student data, we only look and say, okay, this child made the benchmark in the fall, and then they made the benchmark in the winter, and we thought they're doing okay. Then we get to the spring and we say, what happened? Why didn't the student that was benchmarked in the fall and the winter not make it in the spring? Well, if we would have looked closer and said, what is the rate of growth for the student? And they made enough to stay at benchmark, but their rate of growth wasn't enough to make it to the spring benchmark. We could have predicted that. And we could have made instructional changes now instead of be like, what happened? So looking at the rate of growth in addition to the end result. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. And I think the example, the pilot here with Altoona is pretty encouraging, especially when you're talking about the third that had this curriculum in preschool, and now they've started at the highest point that they've ever started at. That's very encouraging. It'd be interesting to see how those numbers look across the district as that gets rolled out.
Yep, and we are always working, again, that 1% better because how do we implement it? How do we get the kids in the routine? There's lots of components. It's not simply like, here's a manual, here you go. We have to establish routines with students and teaching them as well. Addition to teaching them the curriculum, we have to teach them how, oh, we need these materials, we have to sit like this, we have to do this, so we can get through everything, so. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for presenting this
Yeah.
and for your tireless efforts to get us 1% better.
Yeah.
Carrie, I want to piggyback on what Chad just said. The element of preschool is so exciting. All the research I've read, and I'm sure a lot of other people, that preschool to second grade period is so critical, and for you to recognize that, you and all your, whoever helps you. Thank you, man, because that, and like Chad said, the growth that they saw, and their, man, that is golden. I just hope, I hope we can publicize that as much as we can, and I worry about the writing aspect. I know this is all reading, but I'm worried that kids are gonna forget how to write, especially cursive, because kids are typing on cell phones and computers. But if you could do something for writing, I know this is all reading, which is crucial, but
Let's think about it as literacy, because, we spend UFly has a tremendous amount of writing involved.
good.
And because it's only K-2, we don't work on the cursive. But handwriting, we know, is crucial for brain development, and it is built right into UFly.
Thank you.
And we'll be teaching a writing class that Angie, Shannon and I will be teaching a writing class this summer on how to teach writing. So there's
Thank
no
you.
promotion for anybody listening.
I think it's just an amazing testament to our teachers and teachers in general, like what you're tasked to do during the day and fit that all in a half an hour. I can imagine, and get everybody on task, ready, you know, just to set those behaviors. But we saw it in action when we visited the grade schools. They know what they're doing. They were all on task, and I think that routine, that helps kids feel safe too. So yeah, kudos to the hard work going into implementing.
Everybody, yeah. And we thrive on routine, right?
Yep.
Kids thrive on it, and the predictability of, I know what I'm gonna do this day and this day.
Yep.
Is what makes it so successful as well. The teachers, they know exactly how to put kids where they need to be.
Very good. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like a motion to adjourn unless there's anything good.
I'll move